Nuts.
But that's alien, dude. It's alien weaponry.
You might be onto something.
They're coming from under the sea.
Here's the
and
thought.
they're giving us weapons. I'm all about USOs now, dude.
Yeah.
I'm all
Undersea UFOs.
It's unidentified submersible objects.
Yeah.
That's where they are, dude.
Yeah.
They're at the floor
That's
of
what Cat Williams said. Yeah. We were talking about sonar hearing
devices. That just
devices.
touched my heart where I'm like,
Yeah.
do we both have the same crazy theory?
He said, is this correct or incorrect?
Dude, I love that.
We were talking about space, about how we know more about space than we do about the ocean, which is true. And he was saying that those underwater listening devices were most likely so that they could hear UFOs moving around.
Dude.
Because if imagine if there really are bases under the ocean and they know about them.
Well, here's the thing that if they know about them, fuck you, you should tell us. But here's what I think.
Tell us.
The theory I had, because I heard about, I listened to an episode of Last Podcast on the Left where they were talking about USOs, and I got super into it because I was high enough. You know, when the song hits correctly, sometimes the podcast will do that. And I was listening to Last Podcast on the Left, and it hit where I go like, it unlocked because they had this theory that they talked about that the millions of years it took us to crawl out of the water and evolve into fucking whatever we are, like monkeys and then Neanderthals and then humans, all that millions of years, there were things under the ocean evolving for millions of years with technology and stuff, and we're just up on the roof.
But yeah, the problem is we've never seen anything other than us that manipulates its environment. The intelligent things that we found in the ocean that are real are dolphins and orcas.
Yeah.
And whales. But
and what about
dolphins and orcas are crazy intelligent.
But like octopuses too,
yes,
right?
That's true too.
Yeah.
But none of them, octopuses are very smart, but none of them have ever figured out how to make things. Like make houses and cars and ships, and it's all like they're out in the wild. There's no houses. I used to do a bit about how dangerous the ocean is because there's no doors. I'm like, there's no doors. No matter what, it's just
there's
fucking
caves.
Sharks and crabs and no doors.
Yeah.
And everywhere you look, everything is eating everything.
Yeah.
It's literal murder soup because they all eat each other.
It's a ladder of eating.
Yeah.
Just everything goes up and eats something.
And at the top, you have killer whales that are eating whales. They eat everything.
But what if we're missing something? What if we don't see it? What if we are too stupid? What if we're just like rock monkeys and they're just like, they can't see down here. These guys have no fucking clue. You know when you're in a tinted car and someone's like looking in the window and you're looking at him like, look at this fucking idiot. He doesn't even see me. Maybe, what if that's us with the aliens in the water? What if we're like looking down there in the water and they're like, these fucking idiots. Even when they come down here, they can't see shit.
That's possible. It's possible that they also can be completely invisible. Like, we're really close to being able to do that now with stuff. They figured out how to like project what's behind things on screens. So you can like theoretically have a vehicle that as it's moving through an environment, it's projecting what's there.
That's a Predator shit.
Yeah, like literally, that's a concept that they're working on. They're working on it for aircrafts. They're working on it for vehicles.
That's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's so terrifying.
And that's just step one. Step two would be do something that alters reality around the thing so it's invisible.
Yeah.
So
that's what. So you go into the ocean, and we're like down there, and we're so limited because we can't breathe down there. So we're limited. We're in like submarines, or we have robots, and it's just like a fucking ring. Every footage under the sea looks like a Ring doorbell, where it's just like, and we don't know what the fuck they could be behind it. Like these idiots.
There's so little of it that we've explored. There's only like 10% of the ocean floor that we've explored.
10%.
That's so crazy.
10%. And then the thing that they always see UFOs or USOs over water, it's like the high frequency that they see them, and then they just fucking just down in there, and they're like, follow me, bitch. And we're like, we can't breathe. You know, space or the ocean, we can't breathe down there. We have a limited amount of room we can move around in.
Just the idea of something being here the whole time is so creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. And them, but us being... What's comforting is we're all so stupid we don't see it.
Right.
Imagine if you had a friend that's like, hey, like if a couple people could see it. you would be terrified.
Imagine if society had gotten to a point, at one point in time, where artificial intelligence and human brains mixed, and we created a super class of species, like a new thing that's both technological and biological.
Yeah.
And only a small number of beings got that.
I mean,
and those beings, for some reason, left us here the way we are.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing with these aliens. Those are humans that went down the road that we're going down right now.
And they were like, dude, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, and then maybe there was like all the disasters that happened, like the Younger Dryas impact, the asteroids hit, and all that stuff, and level society. But they escape because they're interdimensional travelers.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. It's like leaving a house. You're just like, I don't care about this house anymore.
Now we're somewhere else. They don't need food anymore. They probably work on nuclear energy or something. There's probably some crazy power source.
Or like antimatter.
Yeah,
it's like a thing that we would never even think of.
Yeah, they don't need to breed.
The thing that the Jimmy Carter brief, did you know about this? When where they briefed him and it like broke him emotionally?
Yes.
Where he was like so upset where they were like, hey, by the way, they've been here forever. Like he was like a deeply religious man.
Well, Tucker Carlson's talked about this recently.
Really?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson said that he believes that they've always been here, and he believes that it's probably he was talking about like good and evil, and that we know that good exists and we know that evil exists.
Sure,
we know that people are capable of doing evil. Like these are real forces in the world.
Yeah,
and what people are saying is that these experiences that some people are having with like benevolent ones, that this is the stories of demons. This is the stories of the Bible. That there's races that are evil. There's alien races that don't give a fuck, just like there's praying mantises that eat hummingbirds.
Or, like in nature.
Just because they're super smart.
There are creatures that are aggressive, that are smart, like a hyena, and then there's like animals that are aggressive and just powerful, like lions.
And think about us, the smartest animal on the planet that we know of, and what do we do to chickens?
Fuck them. No.
Oh, those chickens.
I go, no, you don't fuck. Oh, God damn. This is where my whole world unravels. I go, Joe, I fuck chickens, dude. I don't know. I didn't think you were going to get me like that.
Myself have not detailed looked at the footage. However, FLIR experts, some people that work with NSA have looked at it for me, and these are not lights in the distance. These are craft, very similar to what Commander Fravor talks about, without plumes, without heat signatures, non-traditional field propulsion systems. We don't have that.
And I thought they tried to, is this it right here? Is this the Mexican Air Force footage?
Yeah. So they tried to say these were lights on like an oil rig out in the water. That's been debunked.
Yeah, they tried to say fire in an oil rig, right?
No.
The 2004 Comcast video was the Mexican Air Force tracking like 6. So literally right after we come back, and I think we were getting ready to go to Fallon, and I had Comcast, and the home page comes up, and there's this video, and I go, holy cow, that looks like what we chased. And it was like 6 of these things, and they were tracked in the same area too, right off the coast of Ensenada.
And it's not rare. There's now admitted an increased frequency. A Pentagon spokeswoman finally went off script. I was tracking the scripts for the last 2 years of what Pentagon spokespeople say about Commander Favor's experience. Someone went off script last week in the New York Times, and she admitted there's an increased frequency of near misses because of these AAVs, anomalous aerospace vehicles. So it's pretty astounding. We're getting all these kind of revelatory moments in these little seeds that these are not ours. We don't have this. Even Elon doesn't have this. I mean, this is a propulsion system unlike anything we have. It's amazing. It's gravity propelled.
Now, that footage, when it said that there's a fleet of them, how far away are those guys where you don't see the individual objects, you only see a singular spot?
The pod is, when you get pretty narrow, it'd be like, if I put 3 people around you, I can look at you and not see the other people. So that's what the pod is doing. But the radar is seeing everything because it has an AESA radar in it, which is an electronically scanned array. So instead of like the radars we had, which did the mechanical, doing this like old school, this thing is just a panel that sits in the front of the airplane, and through beam sharing or beam shaping, it can move and it can look all over. So we used to have what was called track while scan, so we would be able to track a target while we're still scanning. This thing has scan while it scans while it tracks. So it literally, if it sees you, if the radar sees you, it has basically a weapons quality solution. And it can do that on multiple targets. That's the same way the spy radar, the Aegis system works on the cruisers. It can track multiple targets and have weapons quality on all these different targets while it's still scanning a volume.
So in that image, you're seeing one individual object, but there's other objects?
Yes. The radar is seeing the object that the pod is looking at where they're talking. And when you hear the video, you hear the pilot say, "Dude, look at the SA page. There's a whole fleet of them." So what they're seeing is the pod is looking at the main. That's the bigger object at the gimbal, the thing that's rotating on the screen. And there's 5 smaller things in front. So this thing's just sitting there, and then he said they turn around on the radar and start going the other way while the pod's looking at this guy just kind of rotating.
So like a mothership and smaller aircraft,
could be
something along those lines. Video of those smaller aircrafts, or just the video of the one large one?
The only thing is the target. I would highly doubt, even if they had the video, that they're going to release the radar because of classification levels.
Are you able to tell the story you told me about what was underwater with your other buddy? Because is that okay?
Yeah. So it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork when they figure out you've had this, because they don't feel alone. So I was working. I still do it, but I was doing oil and gas at the time on a contract, and one of the guys, the story came out, and he was a Navy helicopter pilot. And he comes in, he goes, "Dude, hey, can I talk to you?" I go, "What about it?" He goes, "Dude, I got to talk to you." And I said, "What do you want to talk to me about?" "Dude, you know your UFO?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I had a similar experience." I said, "What's that?" He said, he was flying CH-53s, which is a big heavy lift that the Marine Corps uses, and the Navy uses it for certain. And when they go off for the East Coast, they do a lot of shooting. At the time, it was off of Puerto Rico. We had Roosevelt Roads that they ended up closing. But he was flying out of there. And, you got super clear being water. And they have these things that are called BQMs. They fly around, and then when they're all done, because they'll fly towards the ships, and the ship they can track with the radar. And then they also do, the ships, submarines shoot torpedoes. They're called telemetry rounds. So they gather all the data on what the torpedo is doing underwater. And then they blow ballast, and this thing will come to the surface and float, and then they go pick them up, and then they can extract all the data out of them. So they do it for both. So he said the first time they're out, and they're going to pick up this BQM. And those things, when they're flying, they're done. A pair comes out, and they hook it up. The helo drops the swimmer in the water. He goes and hooks this whole thing up, and then they hoist the whole thing up and fly back, and then they extract the data. So he says he's sitting in the front. In helicopters, there's, CH-53, you can actually see down by your feet, just like typical, like you go to Hawaii and ride, because you can see what you're down. So you got really good visibility out of those things, and you can stick your head out the window, too, because you're just kind of hanging out. He says he's going on there, and they're getting this thing hooked up, and as he's looking down, because they're, 50 feet above the water, he sees kind of this dark mass coming up from the depths. And they start to hoist the diver up, and they've got the BQM, and as they hoist it up, he says, and he's looking at this thing going, "What the hell is that?" And then it just goes back down underwater. It just once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. So he thinks, well, that was pretty weird. So he goes out, he says, not too long later, a few months later, he's out and he's picking up a torpedo. So he says they hooked the diver up on the winch, and they're lowering him in, and as he's looking down, he sees this big, massive, he goes, it's not a submarine. He's seen submarines before. Once you see a submarine, you confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, he says, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell him to pull the diver up, and the diver's like a few feet water. So they reverse the winch, and the diver's thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's getting pulled up, and all of a sudden, he said the torpedo just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths, and they never recovered the
Jesus.
And this happened in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I think it is. I could probably get in touch with him and ask him. And he told me, and I'm like, where'd the torpedo go? It just got sucked down. It just went down, and then you get the people that attribute it as, something happened when it blew ballast and it got on water and sank. And he's like, it didn't sink. He goes, it literally looked like it got sucked down. The only reason they did the New York Times stuff, they talked to him, but because the incident was 90s, they wanted something, newer. So they didn't include it, but I know they talked to him. about it.
Now, what was the other footage that we were watching? There was the first footage that Jamie pulled up that wasn't the gimbal footage. That was
the Go Fast.
The Go Fast. What is that?
That's it actually looks more like a Tic Tac, but they saw it going across the water, and they're just grabbing a lock. So they're seeing this with their eyes, and he gets the FLIR to lock on it. And you hear the kid go, "Oh, I got it," because he gets the auto track, and it's just something screaming across the surface of the water. So,
and this is in the same area?
This is East Coast, yeah. This is the same time frame as the gimbal video.
The idea that these are birds, or the idea that this is a radar glitch, or somebody said pilot error, like on a clear blue day, Commander Fravor has nerves. I mean, that kind of thing that people have said on your show to you, that, you know, these are explanations that make sense.
Who said that?
I don't want to say their names.
Mick West?
Yeah, sure.
Mick believes everything. Like, every single thing that's ever happened has a rational explanation for it.
So the probability that, you know, all the radars went off at the wrong time, Commander Fravor, you know, had nerves, that all the other pilots up there with him, that, you know, this thing shot off like a gun instantly, like that was somehow perfectly coordinated. That's a conspiracy. That's a fabrication. Probably Occam's razors, the events happened exactly like we're being told.
Yeah, for us, you know, and I'll go back to the beginning of the story of, you know, the other pilot who was brand new. She had been in the squadron for 4 months, 5 months. So she was still working on her initial qual on the airplane. And, you know, so she gets we get the real world vector, and it's like, okay, real world vector, cool. I'm going to get to do something real, exciting. Then you see the water, and you think, oh, something's sinking, because it's kind of that shape of an airplane, you know, that cross type. So now it's, oh crap, now it's search and rescue. We got to go down and see, you know, because there's people, you know, and we are sympathetic. And to the Tic Tac, and as soon as the Tic Tac, it's, you know, holy shit, what is that? You know, and when you get, you know, some people get very emotional when you talk about it. Because for me, it was like, you know, for her, when you talk to her, she has a disdain for some of the leadership that didn't tell us that these things were up. You know, they're here now, we're getting vectored, because we were the first time the manned airplanes had been airborne when one of these things showed up. That no one even gave us a brief that, hey, we're seeing these objects out here for the last 2 weeks. They're just kind of, you might want to know they're out there. And they never told us. No one knew these things existed besides radar operators. And the radar operators didn't know what they were. They just knew they were seeing, you know, so, and there's a lot of stuff that, you know, that it flew around and it came around me, and it didn't do any of that. The story that I gave you is just relatively benign. But it was, you know, it's an interesting experience.
Incidents that they reported were taking place before you saw that Tic Tac encounter.
Yeah,
they were taking place over a period of how many weeks?
2 weeks. We went out at the beginning of the month for this 2 week at sea period. We pulled in for Thanksgiving, but other than that, we were out till, I think, December 21st is when we shipped back in. Besides pulling in for the 3 days at Thanksgiving. So for the 2 weeks prior, so this was on the 14th, and we went out at the beginning of the month. So about 2 weeks, they'd been watching these things come down, go up, come down, go up. But it was always when we were not flying, which is really probably like the midnight time frame until early in the morning the next, you know, till noon the next day. And then we just happened to go. And if you think about it, you know, I laugh at, you know, if there was some little green man flying around in that Tic Tac, he probably got back to the mothership and got yelled at for being seen. But you're like, oh my God, you let him see you.
So he freaks out. And so he starts telling his friends. And he's like, come with me. I'll show you the launch. I'm not lying.
People forget that. Yes. He went out and he showed people a craft that didn't look like any normal craft come up right when he said it would.
Yeah.
Over a base that wasn't even known then really well. And a sub-base, an area, not Area 51 proper. He's the luckiest motherfucker in the world. He did it 3 weekends in a row till he got caught.
Right.
So it's just like, man, every time you try to call bullshit on him, I try so hard on so many things, motherfucker. People think I'm just some fucking believer.
People have ever called bullshit on him is that he said he might have seen an actual alien. But he said he was walking down a hallway and looked through one of those little tiny windows that's in a door, you know, those little tiny, like 12-inch square windows. And he peered in it quickly as he was walking by, and it seemed like there was a small thing that was sitting on a chair, and there's people standing over it. But he doesn't know if it was a doll. He doesn't know if it was and so in his mind, he's like, fuck, did I see an alien? Like, what the fuck? But he can't go back. It's not, like, everything's, if you work on top secret stuff, apparently, everything's very compartmentalized. Like the people that work on metallurgy don't have access to the people that work on propulsion, that don't have access to the people that, if there is a biological entity, that they examine it.
Which frustrated the fuck out of him, right?
That's not how you do science.
It's not how you do science.
Right. You have to collaborate.
And he says, I wasn't the most qualified person to be there. Maybe they hired me because they could easily dismiss me. You know, he's like, why didn't we have better people on this? You know, people that were more... So he was really frustrated. And he said to me, like, he thought it was a crime against the scientific community. You know, if they have this stuff, like he says, you know, he says it was a crime. And, you know, he talks about that thing through the window. He's so funny about it. You know, I sat him down for long, you know, many sessions, long, really trying to get it out of him.
Yeah.
He goes, you know, Jeremy, I think they were just obsessed with measurements. I go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, look, there was something in a chair, but it was small. Maybe they were trying to just measure it to see if it would fit in a craft. So that's how he kind of gets around, like, did he something or not? He doesn't know.
Like it could have been a doll that they constructed that was really the same height as these things were.
He just doesn't want to go there, right?
And so these creatures that were in this vehicle, if there were creatures in this vehicle.
There were 3 seats.
Yeah, and he estimated they had to be how big?
Like what you think of as like a little gray alien, man, 3-4 feet.
Right.
He said they looked like they were made for children.
The seats.
Yeah, and so look, and every time I try to be like dismiss Bob myself, there's something that creeps in my mind. I'm like, hold on. Like I find out that he was telling the truth. Like recently, I had it verified that, you know, he did work at Area 51. Like I know I had a guy. I found the guy after 30 years that he wouldn't talk with George, the guy that did his security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
I found him. I talked to him multiple times about this, and he did clearance for Bob for the test site. But even more recently, from people that have position to access that information, it was confirmed. I just want you to know, he worked out there. Now, I have people that were out there that saw him on a Janet flight. Bob worked out there.
And a Janet flight is those unmarked planes that would leave from the Vegas airport and head into Area 51.
Right. And you know, so here's the deal, man. Like, it's the cumulative evidence about Bob that I, you know, as a friend of his, like I have no reason to doubt him. And all the evidence tells me that it happened exactly like he said. And he's explaining it best of his ability. And to his own detriment, actually, before coming on your show, man, he's probably the most hated dude. For some reason, people go crazy about him. They either love him or hate him.
Well, I think your documentary turned to people's opinions about him as well.
Thank you, brother.
But then having him on, I mean, some people still call bullshit. They think like his migraines were convenient.
Oh, come on. You saw
But he was having them. He was having them in the green room before we started going on. He was very nervous about doing it.
Of course. He's been beat up his whole life about this shit. I gave him McDonald's before, and I think his wife was super pissed at me, and I was like, you give him a salad. No, he gets really, like, crushing migraines, but, you know, people that are going to call bullshit on that, we're talking about fucking UFOs. If you're going to call bullshit on a migraine, what are you even listening for?
I didn't feel bullshit.
It wasn't
I felt like the whole thing was uncomfortable for him, for sure. But it didn't seem like he was lying. But, you know, look, some people that are really good at liars. But usually when you're really good at lying, you lie about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a consistency in people's lives. And the deeper I got in, chilling with his mom, chilling with his family, chilling with friends that have known him forever, new friends, every single person. And he doesn't talk to them about UFOs, by the way. Like all that. He never talks about that. Just normal life situations.
Right.
The one thing they all said to me, Bob wouldn't waste his fucking time with making up a story, and he'd probably make up a better one. That in the rest, he would. And Bob always says that. He goes, "Man, I wish I could fill the voids for people." He goes, "It's a horrible fucking story, but it happens to be what happened."
Right.
If I was making one up, he goes, "Man, I got some other cool ideas." Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Of course. And so it's like if you're a liar, you generally lie a lot. Like liars don't just lie one time in their life, and then you catch them. They're inconsistent. Like he was lying long before there was an internet. I mean, excuse me, he was telling the story long before there was an internet. So if he was lying, like in the late '80s, like there would be inconsistencies in his story. Like he would forget how he said it. He would fuck something up, or
dude, for the research I did this. For the documentary, like I told him, you got to give me full access to your life, dude. Like boxes, whatever. Don't open them. Let me get all your tapes, everything. I was shocked. Like people, if they're tried something, they're real careful around you. You know, just that was not my experience. But here's my other thing: is like, do we have to believe one single person to understand that this is a real phenomenon.
No, but he's one of the more interesting cases because if he's telling the truth, that means that the government has been working on these things for decades and decades, and that they have gotten themselves in this pickle where they can't publicly disclose what they know and what they have access to because they've had all these people work on these things secretly, and they sort of have a long history of hiding information.
Right. Now think this, right? Like I've been down this path myself mentally. I happen to know that I happen to trust that there was a reverse engineering project separate from Lazar and everything he told us, right? It's a separate thing from a Russian UFO crash that dealt with laser weaponry. There was a derivative exploitation project on the laser as a weapon. I know somebody that worked in that program. I feel it to be a true story. Imagine the derivative technology that you could get from something like highly advanced, just working on it. You're not going to be able to make a UFO because the material science, we haven't caught up yet how to perfectly layer atoms to make the
metallurgy.
Yeah. We will one day have that ability. But our material science is what I think holds us up from like making a craft, right? But what can we learn from one of these pieces of technology? And my ending is a fucking shit ton of derivative technologies have come from looking at these advanced materials.
That was always the assertion. That was the thing that the American Computer Company, do you remember?
I've heard a lot of stories that they've leaked things to private industry. I mean, fuck, I would do that.
This is
UFO
weird.
landing is fact, not fantasy, the Russians insist.
This is
This
1989.
is from 1989, the New York Times.
So
Wow.
Read the beginning of this.
I like Jamie just goes, this is weird.
It's not a joke, nor a hoax, nor a sign of mental instability, nor an attempt to drum up local tourism by drawing the curious, the Soviet press agency TASS insisted today in discussions of what it called an extraterrestrial visit to southern Russia. Residents of the city of, how do you say that? Voronezh. How do you say it?
I don't know, you did.
Voronezh?
I don't know, man.
It's Voronezh. Good luck with that. Insisted today that lanky, three-eyed extraterrestrial creatures had indeed landed in a local park and gone for a stroll, and that a seemingly fantastic report about the event carried Monday by the official press agency TASS was absolutely true. It was not an optical illusion, said Lieutenant Sergei A. Matveyev of the Voronezh, however you say that, district police station, who said in a telephone interview that he saw the landing of the UFO on September 27th. Lieutenant Matveyev confessed that he had not actually seen the aliens, but that he saw the spaceship, and that it was certainly a body flying in the sky, moving noiselessly at a very high speed and a very low altitude. He said, anything is possible. To be honest, Lieutenant Matveyev said he was a little skeptical himself when he first saw the object. I thought I must be really tired, but I rubbed my eyes and it didn't go away. And then I figured in this day and age, anything is possible. Isn't that funny? 1989, in this day and age. Using the sensational tone that has lately infected the once staid TASS, the press agency today provided more details of the UFO landing in Voronezh, a city of some 300 miles southeast of Moscow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it stands to reason that we know that they're a machine, right? We know they can do things that we're incapable of creating right now. Like, there's got to be somebody controlling them.
Look at this.
What?
A three-eyed creature about 9 feet tall and fashionably dressed in silvery overalls and bronze boots with a disc on its chest disappeared, then landed and came out for a promenade with a companion and a robot. The aliens seemed to communicate with each other, producing the mysterious appearance of a shiny triangle, and activated the robot with a touch. Huh. It's so hard, you're dealing with like people. I saw this, like who
I deal with a lot of this, talking to people about it. You actually said something to me one time that really struck me about this. I called you, or we were talking on the phone, frustrated, and I said, I can't wrap my head around if this is true, why there's so much contact, why there's so many types of crafts. Like, we could go to the moon, you know, with like one satellite in like 2 weeks if we had to do it. And you said to me, maybe it's fucking get here. You said that to me, and it made me think, if maybe it is just easy to get here, whatever these things are, maybe they're not from far away.
Well, or maybe it doesn't matter if they're from far away, because their ability to transcend space is very different than what we understand. Like, if you talk to someone from the 1400s and said, you know, I live in California, but I want to visit Italy, they'd be like,
yeah, right.
How the fuck are you going to visit Italy?
Yeah.
You going to get in a boat for a month? Like, what are you going to do? How much food do you have? You going to get scurvy?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? But today, you're like, oh, yeah, of course you are. You're like, I'm going to go to Hawaii. Of course you are. You don't have to worry about rowing out there for 4 months. No, you're just going to go. You're going to fly. Me and the family, we're going to go to Maui. It's going to be great. It's like our version of travel is so radically different than people that lived 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. What is it like 1,000 years from now? Well, it might be radically different to the point where you can just visit extraterrestrial planets.
Maybe it would be as simple as just the I make that joke. They like our top hats, kimonos, and cupcakes. They just fucking love in here. We're really cool to watch. You know, maybe.
It could that it's a part of scientific inquiry. It could be they're gardeners. They're coming back to see how their crops are growing.
Right. Or maybe a combination. If it's easy for one group, maybe it's easy for a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, right? It's in the Journal of like Cosmology or something. I don't know. I'm going to fuck that up. Hal Puthoff. He lives out here in Austin. He just published a paper, peer-reviewed paper, I think, about the idea maybe they're from here.
From here, so.
Like as if...
I've heard that name before. How do I know that?
Yeah, through so many things. Like he was back in the day working for the Stanford Research Institute studying remote viewing. And like this guy's always been kind of... well, you say, well, you know what? That's kind of the funnest shit, right? Like you get paid to study consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do it, you know? So, but, you know, he's had access to a lot of information because of that. So it's one of the people, when he speaks, I listen, right? What does he have to say about it? He wrote this paper, and he wrote it a long time ago and kind of worked on it, I guess, but it was published yesterday in a scientific journal. And it proposes this idea of the ultra-terrestrial, so like something that's been here a long time, maybe like aliens that got here and got stuck, or a civilization that was so advanced and there was some world catastrophe, so it hit itself and now just kind of lives here with us, and maybe they have investment that we don't fuck up the planet, that we don't blow ourselves up. You know, maybe that's... Maybe they have some investment other than your crop theory, you know, the idea that we're just a commodity.
Well, I don't think we're necessarily a commodity, but I don't think we would have a problem with going to a planet and planting life. Like, imagine if we found a planet and it's like Earth of 3 billion years ago, right? There's like some plant life and some fungus, but there's no animal life, no marine life. And we just planted life there and monitored it and watched it grow and evolve. And maybe they have an understanding of there's a process. Maybe there's a process that, like I said, process, not process.
I like that.
Right, like I'm
super fancy, man.
Maybe there's some sort of process where they understand that all life takes a very specific path, and that is a path of increasing complexity, right? If you want to really simplify life on Earth, you would go back to the earliest form of life, which is single-celled organisms, right? Well, why did single-celled organisms become multi-celled organisms? Because they're complexifying. They're becoming more complex. And then they ultimately become hominids that create tools, and they ultimately lead to the industrial age, and they ultimately lead to the technological age that we find ourselves in right now. The thing that they have that's clear is it's constantly a path of ever-increasing complexity. Now, when you look at the work of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and Dr. Robert Schoch and all the people that have studied ancient civilizations and the possibility that there's been a reset along the way, it seems that perhaps there's been some periods of great growth and then some sort of cataclysmic disasters, you know, asteroid impacts and the like, that has sent civilization back down, and then it rebuilds back up again. But it always rebuilds back up again. It always seems to be on the path of ever-increasing complexity and constant innovation, at least amongst the most sophisticated of creatures, which we like to think of ourselves as. Maybe that is just a course in the universe for life. Maybe all life follows that course.
And we're biologically developing too. I mean, we're evolving, so you want to hear something fucking crazy?
Yes.
Okay. This morning I was talking with a guy named Gary Nolan. Have you ever heard his name?
I have.
Yeah. So he, Stanford professor, he's, been working for 10 years studying MRIs of the brains of people like pilots who have had close encounters. And what they found over this 10-year study, there was a CID, but he just openly talks about it now. It's all out in the open, which is cool. There was damage. Like, I've seen the images, some of them. There's damage to the brain when people get close proximity to one of these power sources. Like when they get close to
damage.
Yeah, fucking white matter damage to their brains from in close proximity to a UFO or UAP.
Like close. Are you talking like Commander David Fravor close? Ground?
There was some ground. Close. Like there's an encounter where it's. Like, let's just say you could throw a rock at it. How about that?
Right. Did just Commander Fravor go through these examinations?
Commander Fravor that. So basically, this study found conclusively that there is damage that occurred, not intentionally, but it's like radiation type damage.
Can I put something?
Sure.
Maybe these people that have been examined, maybe the damage is what caused them to see these things in the first place.
Okay, let me now we're going to get real fucking weird, because check out what they discovered. They discovered, in doing these studies on damaged brains, that there is a part of the brain that in a lot of these UFO encounter people, their neurodensity in that area of brain is like 1 in 100. And they've found out through this study that that part of the brain, that it deals with intuition, impulse decision-making. Your intuition, like hunters, right? They need like really good intuition so the impulse, just knowing when to do something. They've studied it in I guess he said like a Japanese form of chess. I don't know the game.
Go?
I don't know.
Oh, that's Chinese.
I don't know. Maybe they studied it that there's neurodensity in this area when people's intuitive moves in a form of chess.
Okay.
They found out that these people are way more likely to have a UFO encounter. So it's the opposite of what you said. Damage was caused by the close proximity to the propulsion system. But what they found out is that these neural density area, I forget the name, brain, the part, they call it the brain within the brain. You could probably look it up. It's just, now, even weirder than that, I think Gary should tell you this, but even weirder than that, they found that couples are partnering who have these neural dense areas, like more than would be random.
So if they're just intelligent people.
Sure, like a smart person.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know exactly what it does, but that correlation is so interesting. So Gary was saying that this morning, cool breakfast conversation, that he thinks having that neurodense area about intuition allows them to see something that's there that other people's minds would just make them ignore. That's his theory.
Well,
what's interesting, I'm reading an interview with him about this, and as he was saying everything, I'm kind of reading along. They get to this part where the brain scans look very similar to people that had the Havana syndrome, and so they were comparing people to that. And then he says he got locked out of the files because it's now a serious incident and something else.
Yeah, he said there was a lot of crossover, or people that were, because it's an intelligence community thing and military thing. And he said he saw a lot of patients with
Let's read this because this is interesting. He said, there's the question asked him, did the people who claimed they'd had an encounter, especially the pilots, describe any perceivable decrease in neurological capacity? Said, of the 100 or so patients that we looked into, about a quarter of them died from their injuries. The majority of these patients had symptomology that's basically identical to what's now called Havana syndrome. We think amongst the bucket list of cases, we had the first Havana syndrome patients. Once this turned into a national security problem with the Havana syndrome, I was locked out of the access to the files because it's now a serious potential international incident if they ever figure out who's been doing it. That still left individuals who had seen UAPs. They didn't have Havana syndrome. they had a smorgasbord of other symptoms. And it said, the next question is, how does the impact of electromagnetic frequencies factor into your hypothesis of what exactly transpired here? One of the patients, it happened on Skinwalker Ranch. Given how deep into their brain given how deep into their brain the damage went, we can actually estimate the amount of energy required in the electromagnetic waves someone aimed at them. We don't think that has anything to do with UAPs. We think that that's some sort of state actor, and again related to Havana syndrome somehow. So Havana syndrome was dismissed initially, right? And then they're recognizing that, no, something is really going on, and it might be some sort of microwave or targeted attack on people, that they're experimenting on some new ability to disable people.
Yeah, it's all Department of Defense. I mean, it's obvious something is happening.
Well, at least if they do know, it's not public.
Yeah.
Right.
I information. I have no idea. It's one of those crazy things. So what we do know about UFOs, the one fucking thing we know for sure about UFOs is that they're high energy in a small amount of space. This is classically, it's been documented, the radiation effects of these when they're around. So the injuries people get, you've heard like the sunburns on one side of their face and shit, the radiation, the hair falling out.
So that's like from closest to the third kind.
But that's from life.
That is, they've actually really had that sunburn on
that's
one
how
side.
That's how they made the movie so interesting, was that they took all the cases, the trace cases, the physical cases. That shit happens to people, and sometimes when they have close proximity to a UFO, they get fucked up.
Right.
It's unintentional. People think it's like the propulsion system itself or something.
Well, Walker,
Walton,
Travis Walton, rather. That was his story, was that they brought him aboard the UFO to repair him.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the way he likes to look at it, or if that's what happened. I don't know.
Wonder, did they ever do a study on his brain?
I don't know.
They should, right? I mean, if that guy's telling the truth, or maybe it would be repaired because they took him aboard the craft and supposedly did some medical procedure to him.
I mean, look, we should study this stuff. I think that's the big takeaway of this moment in our history, because we're repeating history. The UFOs have had this huge wave before, and Congress was interested 50 years ago. Multi-nations were studied openly. Now we're back at this point where I feel like there's an opportunity just to be open. We should study this scientifically, man.
The problem is, I feel like even though there's people that have sightings, and even though there's some kind of metallurgy evidence, there's so little stuff. It's not like if I want to study sea turtles, I can go find the sea turtles and go study them. This is it's too hard to grasp. There's nothing there. You know what I'm saying?
You can't replicate it upon demand, which is what science requires, right?
Yeah.
There are some cool thoughts on how to do that. There have been attempts to lure in UFOs with nuclear weapons.
Really?
Yes.
But attempts to fake that we're going to bait them.
Bait them.
Really?
Well, we'll talk about how I know that later, but it is true. It's not, some of the people I talk with have told me about these.
Right. Told you can't talk about this?
Yeah,
or you can't
the
divulge
basic,
your sources?
Yeah, there we go. The base is 14 out of 14 times or something. I might be getting that number wrong. That there was a way to bait every single time these UFOs would come in when they were transporting nuclear weapons or something like that. Now, if that information is true, then you would have a method. You would have a way to study this. Right? See, I think we're reinventing the wheel so much. Like, obviously.
He's got these stories that people were telling from the 1700s and the 1800s that mirror almost exactly the experiences that people are having today. Mm-hmm. That's where it gets weird. Because, okay, now you're predating any possibility of this being modern technology, that is just hidden and tucked away. They couldn't have done that in the 1700s. There were no way. They didn't even have airplanes yet, right? Okay.
Right.
So if we admit that, then we have to go, okay, well, what's going on then? Is there something else here that's here that's been here forever, like some people think? Or are we looking at something that's visiting us and keeping an eye on us from somewhere else? That's where it's fun. That's the fun one. The fun one is not that it's ours. The fun one is that we're being visited.
Yeah, like, and are we being visited, or do they just live under the oceans?
Right.
You know, like, have they been here fucking forever? And, like, you know, there's this case, Richard Dolan came on my show recently, and he was telling me he wrote this new book about all the underwater cases ever documented, the underwater UFOs, USOs. And there's one from, like, the early 1700s where there was this, like, ship sailing across the Pacific, and this giant glowing orb came out of the ocean. And these sailors all wrote about it. How this massive, like, football stadium size glowing orb came up out of the ocean and, like, flew away. And, you know, like, if how much of the ocean have we explored? Like,
very small percentage.
Very small amount. We've explored more of the moon, I think.
And it would be the perfect base. If you wanted to come here and observe human beings without them being able to see what's going on, that's the best place to hide. Because no one's going there. They don't have the capability of going there. You know, we have submarines, but I mean, if the submarines see things, did they tell us?
Yeah.
Like, if the submarine saw a UFO underwater, would they have a press conference?
Right, exactly.
No.
We know about the nuclear bases above ground because those guys have come out and talked about it. But, like, all of the nuclear submarines that are patrolling the oceans at all times, like right off of our coast, off both coasts, like, if they're carrying multiple nuclear warheads, I'm sure they're seeing something, or they're detecting something there.
Well, there's this one video of something that was moving 500 knots under the water. Like this thing that, like, flew by their camera. Like, they don't...
On the sub?
Yeah, I forget where it was being recorded, but it was a video of something that was like a beam of light that shot through the screen. Like, you could see it moving underwater at this insane rate of speed with no ripples, no disruption of the water, just moving through the water.
Yeah.
And then there's these transmedium videos, these videos of these things flying. They go into the water with no splash, no nothing, and they don't lose any momentum.
Yeah. I think the best evidence that those things have been here forever is probably, like, ancient stories, biblical story, like aliens or like angels and demons stuff. Like,
what about Ezekiel?
Like, before Ezekiel too, right?
Ezekiel in the Bible, that story's nuts. The wheel within a wheel, the way he's describing, like, what are you saying?
Right.
And imagine you've no context.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing something that's floating, some geometric pattern that's hovering in the sky above your head and emitting light, and trying to explain this, and then also going back and trying to remember exactly what you saw, because you're probably freaking the fuck out. You really do have some sort of an encounter with some orb that's flying in the sky. How do you even describe it? What context do you put it in? Do you describe it as an alien? Do you describe it as an angel? Do you think it's God? Like, what do you think it is?
Right.
Did you see that guy, Representative, what's his name, Tim Burchett? Is that his name? Who was talking about there's 5 specific areas where these things seem to be emanating from the ocean?
I'm generally familiar. I don't remember what those areas are. I know that
one of
them is very near me. It's the Channel Islands corridor.
Right.
I tracked down this book that's out of print now called The Unidentified. No, it's the UFOs and USOs, unidentified submersible objects of the Santa Catalina Channel. This guy went around.
Is that common?
Well, in this one area, tons of bizarre activity. This guy went around and he interviewed everybody who had a weird story. And he points out in his prologue, these are all just the stories I've collected. I have not edited these stories. I've not modified these stories. And the people have verified that they are correct. And you hear they are all on the record. This is their name. He didn't include anybody who was anonymous, because his point was, if it's anonymous, you could just claim I made it up. It has to be a real person who stands behind it. And he said, you'll notice that across about 50 years of stories I've collected, that there's extraordinary commonality between these stories. People who have never met, have no reason to work together, have no reason to have a common story, and yet they all observe very similar things. And that when you see a one-off, it's hard to draw a conclusion. When you see a pattern, it becomes a lot more
What are they
interesting.
observing specifically?
The things that they were seeing were vehicles that were in the sky and then going into the water at high speed and appearing to like not hitting them and slamming and exploding like you'd expect, but instead still a huge flash, but just seamlessly transitioning into the water. Lots of noise, lots of splash, but not like destroying themselves. And then similarly, objects coming out of the water in the same way. And so they all describe these very, very steep approach paths. So like not coming in like an aircraft landing on the water, but almost like coming out of the sky at these very steep angles and then just smashing into the water in a way you would expect would destroy anything. But then instead, the vehicles are apparently fine, and the water just parts around them as they rocket in.
Ooh.
And so is there some technology that can displace air around you that can also displace water around you is kind of the interesting theory there. But yeah, that particular area I've dug into because it's only about 20 miles away from my house. So
the weird one is the breakaway civilization thing. That's the weird one because that's the most ridiculous until you start thinking about it. And then you start looking back at past civilizations like ancient Egypt and some of the monolithic construction around the world.
You've read Chariots of the Gods? Mm-hmm. I read Chariots of the Gods when I was, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8.
It was a fun movie, too.
Oh, I haven't seen the movie. I didn't even know there was a movie.
It's an old-ass movie.
Well, it's an old-ass book.
It was in the movie theaters.
So the interesting thing about it is like I've dug into a lot of that as I've gotten older. And yes, there are things in there where like we've now learned that they weren't true. But some of it holds up. There's still really bizarre stuff that was happening in ancient civilizations that is common between civilizations. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense when you think about it conventionally. Well, what do you think about the theory that that there's other sentient that the other sentient species of Earth might have better lore on this than us? Have you heard of this theory?
No.
I don't want to. So this is going to make me sound a bit like a little bit like a nutter, but I'm pretty deep on. We're pretty deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, we're on nutter territory right now.
So people have oral traditions that have passed down pretty well, but we've also observed that stories can pass down in other sentient species like whales, like dolphins. They have these whale calls that have been constant for a long time. They communicate with each other, and it's not that crazy of an idea. And so you wonder, for example, if we could understand them, what would they have to say about any of this stuff? Like maybe they're not smart enough to have anything to say, but do they have anything to say about and like it may not be obvious. It may not be we know about star people who are going through stargates.
Right.
But for example, what if there's oral tradition or even genetic programming around? Oh, we never go to this area. Never go to this place, or never eat the food from this place. Could there be interesting leads that are buried in cultures that are not human?
Well, we were talking about that before, that you're working on interspecies communication.
Are you familiar with the X Prize Foundation?
Yes, we were just talking about
So,
it.
like, if people aren't familiar, X Prize is basically this group that makes these big, significant monetary prizes for teams to compete against each other to do things that seem crazy. So, like, there was an X Prize for going to space on a reusable rocket. They're doing some cancer X Prizes. There's one that's going on right now called the Wildfire X Prize, which is basically challenging companies to build a system that can detect wildfires anywhere on the planet in less than a minute from space, and then deploy autonomous drones to extinguish them before they get large enough that they turn into a real wildfire. The idea is like, instead of responding to fires once they're too big to control, you're able to stop them in their tracks. And I mean, just like the Palisades fire created $20 billion in damage, it's actually very cheap to do this relative to the damage that wildfires cause. But one we are working towards is an interspecies communication X Prize. And it's a prize and I think that with modern AI advances, this is going to be a lot more possible to gather large amounts of data, reason about it, and figure out the vocabulary and grammar of these species. The idea is it's the first team that can meet species where they are and communicate with them in a repeatable, verifiable way. This isn't teaching a dog to, say yes when you say go.
Do you want to eat?
Exactly. No, this is bi-directional communication, objective, verifiable, deterministic, predictable. It's a really hard one, but I think a good X Prize should be. You shouldn't be picking things that are easy.
Right.
You're picking things that they seem like they're just out of reach, and you just need to stretch for it.
Whales and dolphins, they have a language, but we don't know what it is.
That's right.
So the idea is the using of AI.
Yep.
If you get to super general intelligence and AI can run all the patterns through some sort of a program and determine what is being
because
expressed.
We've learned some things. Like we've learned how a lot of cetaceans can call names and very unique IDs.
They have dialects.
Yep, they do. But we are so far away from cracking the code, right?
Isn't that nuts? Safe to say.
I safe to say, but it's not so much just the UFO itself. I mean, I don't call them that anymore. We call these advanced aerial threats. They're different, but
Threats?
You honed in on a word we weren't supposed to really get into here in the first part of the show.
Did you have a plan?
I have a very long plan, detailed plan. We're going to start with my body. We're just going to talk about my body for a lot. And
Okay, we'll talk about when it comes to your body.
well, my body is interesting. It's unique, and it changes shape. And what I've noticed is it's just changing.
Yeah, it's getting
wider.
depending upon what you put in it.
Oh, can I cuss?
Yeah, for sure. We're on the internet.
You're so fucking fit. You shook my hand. I think you're gonna break my hand.
I didn't mean to.
Don't be so
I was
handsome
just
and
shaking your
strong.
hand. It was a handshake.
I know. Well, it's one of those power moves. You ever see when Trump shakes people's hands and he pulls them in and he's like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean to do that. Just meant to shake your hand like a man.
I took it as like, know your place, motherfucker.
Oh,
this
that's
is my
weird.
show.
I did that.
No, I'm just joking.
Interesting. So when did you get obsessed with this aerial threat thing? And why do you threats?
We'll get into that, I guess.
Okay.
But I got into it when I was in junior high. But for some weird reason, I had like some time off and I went to the school library in like 7th grade, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna read some boring shit. What am I gonna read? And I saw this one book, and it had a picture of the Loch Ness Monster in like a UFO. I'm all, that looks cool. And I read that, and I was like, holy cow, these are like real. It wasn't all science fiction. I mean, the way the book was laid out, I was like, these are like real events. I'm all, there's no way, really. And then when the band started doing its thing in the back of the van, there were no like smartphones, so we were buying books, and I would just lay there. We'd have like 20-hour drives, and so I started buying books on the UFO phenomenon, and I was. Once you do that, it's a black hole. You're done.
Yeah, definitely a rabbit hole. You get sucked to it. At my house, I have a framed poster that's the cover of the Roswell Daily News. That shows the day after the Roswell crash, where it says that the Air Force came and recovered the wreckage, and the whole deal. I've been obsessed with this shit since I was a little kid.
Yeah, I think that's by design. I think that this generation was meant to have this stuff come out. But, I can't prove that. That's just my feeling.
What?
Because of what you said, there's a lot of people. I don't believe that some of the events happened on accident. I think that there's been a lot of events that are on purpose. Some have been for show. Some have been for, there's a variety of reasons. But I think a lot of it is a control system that's really pushing humanity in a specific direction. And
so like they got a time frame where they've had these events take place. Is that what you think?
And they also time travel, which is different than what people think in like a movie where they sit in a machine and all of a sudden you're in the 1930s and you got to go save humanity. When you use the technology, there's a time difference between what they're doing inside of an artificially created bubble of gravity of sorts, and then what's on the outside. So if you're on the inside of one of those machines, everything would be skewed more black and white. There would be like a red shift, and everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand. It's really...
Where is this from?
Well, take a wild guess. The people I'm surrounded by,
So the people you're surrounded by are telling you this? Is that what it is?
Well, I don't want to get into that, but the people I'm surrounded with and myself, are very close to this stuff. But the physics, the physicist that's a co-founder of my company, To the Star, he's a Nobel nominee. He wrote the book on plasma physics.
What's his?
Dr. Hal Puthoff. And he created remote viewing. Do you know what remote viewing is?
Yeah.
He's the creator of the CIA psychic spy program, but he also has done like really exotic, advanced, forefront propulsion work for the past decades and decades. Actually, I mean, he's deep into the like quantum this and that. So he's the one who actually told me about the redshift. Yeah.
And so they have experienced this physically, or is this just theoretical, or they know that it exists? Like
the technology?
Yes.
I believe that the technology not only exists, we've figured out how to play with it, but I'm not going to really get into that. That is what we're doing at my company, though. That is the announcement. So Steve Justice was head of advanced programs at the Skunk Works, and the Skunk Works are who built, the famous secret bases you hear about. Skunk Works did, the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Black, the F-117 stealth fighter, and
it's all Groom Lake out there.
That kind of stuff. And he literally was in charge of all the advanced programs. So, you got the boss and you got him. And he came, he just finished his career over there within the past 2 months, I think it is. And he was on stage with me when we came out and said, we're going to be building one of these things.
So when you say that all this technology exists, have they explained this to you, or have you seen it physically?
I haven't seen anything physically like that. I wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere if that does or doesn't exist.
So they've just explained to you that this exists. And that is in the hands of the U.S. government?
I think no. I don't get into that kind of stuff. But if you don't mind.
Well, why is it that you want to not get into certain things?
I want to I represent more than myself these days.
Right.
So I definitely have to watch what I say.
Well, who do you represent when you say you represent more than yourself?
The team that I'm with. So when you look at the people that are a part of my company, it's Undersecretary of Defense and Senior Intelligence Service.
Is there a list of people that we could see?
Oh, yeah. I thought you guys would have had that.
Yeah, but I mean, is there a list where folks could see it online?
Yeah, they can go to thestarsacademy.com and scroll down, and you'll be able to see who they all are. So
how did you get linked up with all these people?
That story might be a better way to start, because a lot of people don't know this part of the story, and I think you're going to find it pretty odd as well. But okay, so we'll back up a couple years. So I was obviously, I started the band Blink, and Blink went places, and then, but we always had a weird relationship, like most bands, and we also thought that we wouldn't be big, so we started companies on the side, and I had a company that incubated a lot of small startups, like software and apparel and hardcore skate surf companies and stuff like that. Well, I learned a lot from that, and I pulled out an entertainment startup, The Stars. And I knew I was going to be doing kind of like science fiction franchised stories, just like Disney, but science fiction for adults. And what that means is, I make a story, I title it, I brand it, and I put out the book, and I put out the merchandise, and I go make a movie, and it's a vertically integrated kind of model. Well, one of the stories I knew I wanted to put out was Secret Missions, which was kind of a historical fiction, but based on real events about the UFO phenomenon. But I also knew that I knew shit that most people don't know, because I've studied it for so long, and I happen to put some pieces together that most people don't put together. So before I came out with that book, and before I came out with the plan to take that, make major motion pictures and all that kind of stuff, I knew I needed to ask permission. So I flew around to places. Can't say who they were, but they listened to my pitch, and then I got a email out of nowhere that says meet us next to the Pentagon at this day and time, and I did that. And from that,
you got an email from just a random person?
No, I just can't tell you who it's from.
Okay.
And so then I go out.
Meet in the Pentagon? So you just flew to the Pentagon?
Pentagon City, yeah. It's dude, this gets. I'll tell you when I started freaking out. There's more shit. It gets way worse. This is nothing. So that started me out near DC, taking some other high level meetings, and there was somebody at a very high level that closed the door, looked me in the eye, and says, "Okay, I'm going to introduce you to somebody." And that person comes to San Diego, puts me on the phone with a general, and the general is listening to my little stump speech about what I want to do with this franchise, because I definitely, I wasn't looking to like force disclosure, and I wasn't looking to be rogue and break secrets. I was like, look, I know what's going on here, and you guys are doing a kick-ass job, and I would have done the exact same thing should I have been the guy at the top that had to make some really hardcore decisions 70 years ago. So I want to support you. I think people are cynical because there's a vacuum. You guys can't say what you're doing. So all these people are just coming up with a bunch of bullshit to say, oh, they don't want us to know, or we can't handle, or it's all about oil and money and all this weird shit.
But you would put these together independently.
I did.
And based on books that you read?
People think that like places like the CIA and the DIA, all these intelligence organizations have, a monopoly on information. They don't. They get their information from the real world too. They do have access to archives of information. They do have access to some amazing satellite data and stuff like that. But if you're smart and you take your time, you know where to look, and you find patterns, you can pretty much put together all the same shit they can, kind of, and that's what I did. And so when I pitched what I wanted to do, he said, come up and meet me tomorrow. And so I flew up to NASA, actually, NASA Ames, and had a 2-hour meeting there. And after 2 hours, that person says, he looks me in the eyes, I'll introduce you to someone else. And he did. And so I got on the phone with this person, and this person, goes, I'm a skeptic. And then at the end of the conversation, he goes, see me. And so I did. And that's when things really started happening. So I fly out to this airport, and I sit at a table in a restaurant at the airport. No one's in there. And this gentleman sits down, and the waiter comes up. He waves off the waiter, and he looks me in the eye and says, it was the Cold War, and we found a life form. And that's when I started shitting my pants, because I know a lot about this stuff, but you always wait to talk to somebody that is one of the inside people. You always want to have...
So he's down at a restaurant with you at the airport and tells you that they found a life form.
Yes. And war, and everything that they did and every decision they made at the time was because of the consciousness of the Cold War.
And why has he decided to meet with you at the airport?
Because the only way you meet with these people, the only way you ever would have anyone talk to you is if you can provide a service that they need. Mm-hmm. And my service was pretty interesting to them, because I said, look, you guys... you struggle with saying disclosure. You want to tell everybody everything, which I don't think everyone should know everything. And then you say they can't handle it, so don't tell them anything. And I'm like, there's a middle road there, and here's the way I would do the middle road, and it resonated with them. And so we had a pretty epic conversation for like 2 years.
Why you? Like, why? What is it about what your message was? What your idea was? I'm going to tell you some top secret shit that they've tried to keep away from the American people. Well, I mean, you take a guy who's like a big celebrity who's in a huge rock band like you, and you just say, hey, meet me in an airport. I'm going to tell you about a life form that we found during the Cold War, because you're famous or because you know things?
No, because I have a service. So it's not. It sounds easy when you play it like that, but a service. Like, what can you do for them that they need help with?
And what could you do?
Communication. They don't have a way to make a movie, a book. They don't know how. Don't have a way to make documentaries. They don't have a go on a big show like this and communicate with young people. They don't do that, and nor should they. They look at. You got to look at what they're doing.
So they look for a spokesperson role.
I wouldn't say spokesperson role, communication role. It makes more sense.
So they would some information to you, and you would get it out to people. And now, why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they wouldn't have the same platform. They don't access to the same platform that you would have.
And the other reason is people have tried to do movies and stuff like this, but none of them was fortunate enough to know the core story, and most people don't.
Let's explain that then, if you don't mind going back. Like, you said that you were able to put things together that other people weren't. What are those things?
Essentially, it's the book Secret Machines, where you have a lot of private finance, you have some world bankers, and you have a lot of people internationally working together to figure out a plan of how to push back against something that's been coming here for a very long time, but using off-the-books finances and using mechanisms that we're not totally aware exist. And what people have to realize is, the UFO phenomenon isn't a phenomenon. There's the universe is fucking gigantic, and there's life everywhere, every fucking where, and there's a lot of life that's way advanced than we are. And just like Voyager left our solar system a little dinky satellite from the 70s, and just like my company's going to be building, this electromagnetic craft that really can do the same thing to time that I've been telling you about. Other civilizations have that too, which means you can traverse distances of space. And what you have to think about is what happened when we first discovered that, and what did we do about it? And there's no, you got to look at 47 in a very peculiar way. 90 days after the Roswell event, CIA was created. The Air Force was separated from the Army. The National Security Act was created. And all those things, mechanisms to start learning more and to start getting private industry off the ground.
But that had nothing to do with World War II. You think it had to do with aliens?
Oh, I absolutely think it. Well, both, because what I believe crashed at Roswell was, I believe it was German from Argentina, but it had hallmarks and technology based on alien technology. So we put out a story saying it's alien, put out a story saying it's a weather balloon. But the real thing we didn't want anyone to guess. And that's why we put those two things out there. And that's kind of how they do it. I think they did that with the moon. It's like, we went to the moon, and then they put out this meme kind of thing. Like, we didn't go to the moon, but they didn't want people really going, well, what's on the moon? So these things are managed until they can figure it out, because you got a bunch of normal dudes in suits sitting at a big table like this, and it's their fucking responsibility to figure this thing out. And this shit is monumentally big. But back to
how would they manage this then? If these regular dudes with access to communication like you have, how have they managed to disseminate this information and sort of confuse everybody?
I can tell. I don't know how they did it. I do know that they infiltrated UFOs. That was the very first thing they did in the 50s.
Sort of how FBI agents and undercover cops infiltrated Occupy Wall Street and pretended to be
Hopefully it all comes out and people can legally talk about it at some point. But
can you talk about it without?
I know there's been multiple contact events, like straight up, straight up contact events. One of them is revealed in the film actually, but there are more. There was this. Several of the people in my film talk about an event that happened at Halleman Air Force Base where 2 non-human crafts approached the base, one landed, beings walked out and interacted with Air Force officials and CIA officials. And a couple people go on the record talking about that in the film. But there have been other events, I've been told.
How are those beings described?
They were described as tall, slender, humanoid. And the another thing that I heard that gave me chills was that someone involved with a recovery interacted with a non-human being that was dying and heard thoughts in his head that said, you humans don't know your full potential. And that was said to me by a very senior, older guy from the intelligence community. And I thought that was pretty incredible. Also, just the extent to which the legacy program is real. This isn't like 50 guys sitting in a quiet, dark room. You're talking about a massive program with thousands of people going to work every day and dealing with this. And to me, that is mind-blowing, Yeah. The guy next to you at the pizza place, on a Saturday night might be working on this during the day,
Right.
The guy who, the other father at your kid's Little League game.
Yeah.
This is what he deals with, right? The fact that is a thing, and, we had a similar dynamic for the Manhattan Project. There were all these people working on it, and they kept it secret, right? And their neighbors and friends didn't know. But this is that on steroids. So, after the Manhattan Project, which was had a budget in the billions, this situation arose, and it had to be even more secret than the Manhattan Project, because the Manhattan Project, we found out in hindsight, leaked, right? There were moles.
Right.
So we needed to make this even more secret and give it more money and more resources and more, counter intel.
And more threats.
Which is counter intel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, threats if you reveal those secrets. But it's like the more this stuff gets discussed, the more I go back to what Lazar said. Because what Lazar is describing from the 1980s is exactly what these people are saying now. They've had these things. They've been trying to figure them out. They've been working on them. At least in the 1980s, they hadn't totally cracked it yet. But they did know how to operate them, and that they would do these tests. But everything was so compartmentalized. He said he wasn't allowed to talk to the metallurgist. There was different people that were assigned to it.
Yeah.
What they were assigned to do was to try to figure out how the propulsion system worked.
Yeah.
And then there was other people that were assigned to try to figure out how the metallurgy was formed.
Yeah.
Because whatever it was seemed like it was 3D printed. It didn't have any seams.
Yeah.
And when he talks about it, it sounds exactly like what people are talking about today. which is really bananas.
Yeah.
Because this is late 1980s, and he's the first guy to crack through with this stuff.
Yeah, everything is so in that secret program. Everything is so siloed out where you could have one team of defense contractors who are working on one thing. They're not even told it's from an alien spacecraft. They're just told, here's the thing. It might be Russia. It might be China. Tell us how it works. You know? They're just kept in a little bubble. And one of the issues now is that everything's become so overclassified and so siloed that it's actually hurting progress. And that's a lot of the scientists in my film are voicing that. And one of the other things I learned recently that isn't in the film, Jay Stratton, who ran the UAP task force, he told me that during that time, he had started a talk with one of the senior scientists at Lockheed, who was frustrated by how overclassified everything was. It even made it hard for the defense contractors to get the right manpower and brains on it, because not everyone can be cleared to do the work, right? There's all these like red tape hurdles to progress, right? And so they had made a plan to move one of the crafts that had been recovered that was in Lockheed's possession into the possession of the UAP task force. And then the task force was going to be able to put more brain power towards it. And then the head of science and technology at the CIA shut it down in the middle of the transfer. They had actually secured a hangar on a military base and prepped it to be a classified hangar that would hold this craft, and they were stopped. So the issue of overclassification.
Did they know what happened after that?
Yeah, the CIA just shut the whole transaction down, and the craft stayed in Lockheed's possession. And then that particular leader within Lockheed died about 2 years later. So the effort kind of stopped. He had cancer. The overclassification is definitely a hurdle for this. And our competitors don't necessarily have that. Like there's no free will in China. She can just be like, hey, you're the smartest guy graduating your class. You're going to go work for the nation on this,
Right, period.
And here, the problem is no one knows it's real. One of the things I hope the film changes is it makes the scientific community know that this is a valid area of inquiry. This is real. It's a real situation. And there's a ton of problems for the next generation of engineers and scientists to solve, And so hopefully it inspires them and helps us make progress, because there's a lot of progress that could be made here.
Well, it certainly seems like it, but it's like one of the things that you guys propose in the film that I think may be the only way forward is some sort of a mass amnesty to all these people that did lie to Congress and probably misappropriated funds and maybe stole a little bit here and there. Like if that doesn't happen, no one is going to push to make this public. No one's going to push for like actual full disclosure, because it leaves them too exposed. And if they do have the kind of power that they must have to be running an organization of thousands of people working on something with unbelievable amounts of money being transferred to these programs, they don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's a honeypot that they're drawing from, right? And they're probably still taking too much, or there's no oversight. You're still lying to Congress. And you'd have to have some national security amnesty program saying, look, in the interest of national security, it's critically important that we get all of our best people working on this. The only way we're ever going to really do that is to completely reveal that this is actually really happening. This is real crafts from somewhere or something. We have them. We'll tell you where we have them. And I think right now, people wouldn't even freak out, because I would think that people would freak out if there was some sort of official narrative of disclosure. But that's sort of been breached, right? The New York Times breached that in 2017.
I think this film is that. I mean, this is 34 credible people putting their reputation and name on the line, which I honestly, Joe, I think it's stronger evidence than any video or photo. These days, you could put a 4K video of a giant craft over Vandenberg, and half the human population will say it's AI or created some visual effects program. But someone of note putting their name and reputation on the line, their career on the line, the rest of their lives on the line, to say this is what I know to be true. To me, that's the greatest evidence that exists. But I do think, to your point, amnesty is something that's gonna have to be figured out, because while it's hard for anyone to accept letting people off the hook for wrongdoings, right? It does seem like it's in the best interest of the bigger picture.
100%.
Because these people just aren't good. They have no incentive to come forward with what they've learned. And so to quote Rubio in the film, he says, look, this is not a endeavor to go and punish anyone, but we need to know what they learned.
Right.
And I think he's totally dead on. And,
is he in favor of some sort of an amnesty program as well?
Yeah, he says on camera in the film, he's like, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I need to know what they learned because taxpayers paid for this and it's in our interest to know what's going on. But the other thing that's needed is real whistleblower protection, not the whistleblower protection that's been passed so far, like much stronger legal protection so that people like the folks I talked to, the special forces guys I talked to, were going to come forward and then decided they thought to be forfeiting their lives. You've got to change that set of circumstances. You got to make those people feel like that's not going to happen to them.
Right.
And what I think ultimately is going to have to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised, man, if it happens soon after the film comes out, I think a sitting president has to step to the microphone and say, definitively, humanity's not alone in the universe. We have recovered technology of non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race, and the U.S. intends to lead in this new chapter. I think that needs to happen, like a level set of basic facts, and I really do think it will happen.
Well, if that is going to happen, I think Trump might be the only guy that's willing to do something crazy.
I think it's very likely that he does that. I know that he is aware of the film. I know he's aware of what people in his administration say.
Has he watched it? You know that?
He has not watched the film, but I know he's very aware of it, and I know that they are discussing internally how they're going to react to the film publicly. And I also know that he has very recently, tasked Tulsi Gabbard with getting to the bottom of the situation and finding out for him what he needs to know that he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah. And as Rubio said in the film, Rubio says on camera, on the record, on the film, that this has been kept from sitting presidents. And he goes into detail on how that's been done and how it's the career bureaucrats in certain elements of the government that control this information and just wait presidents out and don't feel like they have a need to know.
Right. Well, there were some people that tried to find information out in the beginning of the Trump administration. Who was it? There was someone that talked about it on record and said he was told at every turn that you don't have the clearance.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Trump actually found out about the base facts in his last presidency and was contemplating stepping to the microphone then.
What base facts?
So Jay Stratton, who ran the task force, he says on camera in my film that he briefed that Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, asked for a briefing on the lay of the land because Trump asked him to get the briefing, and Trump had already known that the base facts that we're not alone in the universe, that there's been recovery of crashed craft, right? He knew those base facts, and he told Mnuchin that he was thinking about going public. And so Mnuchin reached out to Stratton to get a briefing, and he told Stratton that the reason he wanted the briefing is because he needed to be able to evaluate what the impact would be to the economy if the president decided to step to the mic and tell the world we're not alone. And Stratton tells the story on camera in the film, and I've heard a lot more about it off camera. So we know Trump contemplated doing this already. Now I think the release of this film and Rubio's involvement puts enough on the table that it makes it easier for him to do.
I think they would have to have some sort of a plan in place if they were going to say that, right? Like the amnesty plan, the idea behind it would have to be in place. If someone's
or at least grab control of the situation and say that this is real and the U.S. intends to lead the way. Because the other factor that the White House has to keep in mind is you don't want Xi or Putin being the guy to do that.
Right.
You don't want them to have that moment, right?
Right.
Something I always think about with regards to that moment of a president stepping to the mic, when we entered the space race, Kennedy gave that big famous speech, right? He was like, we're going to lead in space, technology, space technology, like nuclear technology has no conscience of its own. It's up to man to use it for good or bad, and we're going to make sure it's used for the betterment of all mankind, and we're going to lead the way. That was his whole rallying speech, right? And it made the whole scientific community be like, we're going to help the U.S. win, rah, 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 right? I think that's needed in this race. Like, we need all the support of the scientific community, of academia, the kids coming out of MIT. We need them putting their brain power towards this. And I think the White House knows that. And it's also the greatest, that's the greatest TV moment a leader could have in the history of humanity. Step into the microphone.
Do you think Elon knows?
Look, I've seen him obviously talk to you about it. I think he knows a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think you get the contracts and the clearances you need to operate in space without some horse trading.
Yeah, when I went to SpaceX, I'm like, motherfucker, you know everything. There's no way. There's no way you're launching these fucking things into space without them keying you in on exactly what's going on. He's just sly about it.
Well,
he goes, well, if they are aliens, they're certainly all subtle. That's what he says. Like, well, are they really? I don't know, man.
I think it's impossible to operate in space like he does and not be aware of everything. And also at the level he operates clearance-wise. I held a secret screening at the National Space Symposium earlier this year, which is the Super Bowl of the space industry. It's like 60 people, heavy hitters from the space industry. We didn't promote it or publicize it at all, but there were a dozen guys from SpaceX there, and they all seem very aware of everything revealed in the film.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah,
he's my friend, and he won't tell me.
He's a legend.
He keeps a lid on it.
He's a legend.
But how would he not know if it is? And some people have told me he knows that know he knows some things. So whatever. But the point is, people are good at keeping secrets. That's real.
100%.
Even people that aren't notoriously good at keeping secrets are good at keeping secrets when they have to be.
Do you think if you put yourself, you've interviewed Trump, do you see him doing that? Stepping to the mic and telling us the truth?
Someone talks to him about it and convinces him it's a great idea. Like if I had an hour with him.
I mean, it's literally the single, in my opinion, the single greatest moment a leader could have.
Well,
in the history of the world.
If he could be the guy that blows the lid off of it, that would definitely help with his legacy too, which I think would be a good way to convince him.